There are many questions. Now we begin to answer. Our history moves from slavery toward freedom. It begins with degradation and rises to dignity. Our service opens with the rule of evil and advances toward the kingdom of God. This is our theme. We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and God freed us from Egypt with a mighty hand. Had not the Holy One who is to be praised delivered our people from Egypt, then we, our children, and our children's children would still be enslaved. Therefore, even if all of us were wise, all of us people of understanding, all of us learned in Torah, it would still be our obligation to tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. Moreover, whoever searches deeply into its meaning is considered praiseworthy, for redemption is not yet complete. In the beginning, our ancestors were idolaters, but afterwards we were drawn nearer to God's service, as it is written, "Of old your ancestors dwelled beyond the river Euphrates, and they served other gods." We have known physical bondage and spiritual servitude. We've also been subjected to social degradation, for in the eyes of others we were a subject people, Arameans. The Torah tells us, "My father was a fugitive Aramean. He went down to Egypt with meager numbers and sojourned there, and there became a great and populous nation." The Torah says, "I took your father Abraham from across the river, and I led him into the land of Canaan, and I increased his descendants. And I gave him Isaac, and to Isaac I gave Jacob. When Jacob and his children went down into Egypt, Joseph was already in Egypt, and had emerged with power over the land. There was famine in all lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread. And Pharaoh said to the Egyptians, 'Go to Joseph. Whatever he tells you, you shall do.' And all the world came to Joseph in Egypt. After he died and all of his brothers and all that generation, a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, 'Look, the Israelite people are much too numerous for us. Let us then deal shrewdly with them, lest they increase, and in the event of war join our enemies in fighting against us and gain ascendancy over the country.' So they set taskmasters over them with forced labor, and they built garrison cities for Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramses. The Egyptians embittered their lives with harsh labor at mortar and brick, and in all sorts of work in the fields. But the more they were oppressed, the more they increased and spread out, so that the Egyptians came to despise and dread the Israelites. So Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, 'Every boy that is born shall be thrown in the Nile, but let every girl live.' We cried unto Adonai, the God of our ancestors, and God heeded our plight, our misery, and our oppression. God heard our moaning, and God remembered the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God looked upon the Israelites, and God knew. And God said, 'I will go through the land of Egypt on that night, and I will mete out justice against all the gods of Egypt.' And God brought us out of Egypt by a mighty hand, by an outstretched arm and awesome power, and by signs and portents, not through a messenger, nor through any intermediary or any supernatural being, but the Holy One alone in solitary glory." The time the Israelites remained in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430th year, to the very day, all the hosts of God departed from the land of Egypt. That same night is God's watch night for the children of Israel throughout their generations. We praise God who keeps faith with the people Israel. God's promise of redemption in ancient days sustains us now. For more than one enemy has risen against us to destroy us. In every generation, in every age, some rise up to plot our annihilation, but a divine power sustains and delivers us. The plagues of Egypt. Our rabbis taught, when the Egyptian armies were drowning in the sea, the heavenly hosts broke out in songs of jubilation. God silenced them and said, "My creatures are perishing, and you sing praises?" Though we descend from those redeemed from brutal Egypt, and have ourselves rejoiced to see oppressors overcome, yet our triumph is diminished by the slaughter of the foe, as the wine within the cup of joy is lessened, when we take out 10 drops for the plagues upon Egypt. To remember upheaval that follows oppression, we take out 10 drops for the plagues upon Egypt. Our rabbis taught, God is urgent about justice, for upon justice the world depends. Each drop of wine is hope and prayer, that people will cast out the plagues that threaten everyone, everywhere they are found, beginning in our own hearts. The making of war, the teaching of hate and violence, the spoliation of the earth, perversion of justice and of government, fomenting of vice and crime, neglect of human needs, oppression of nations and peoples, corruption of culture, subjugation of science, learning, and human discourse, the erosion of freedoms. We take from the cup 10 drops for the plagues upon Egypt. So the custom is to say the name of the plague and to take a drop, and we usually do it with the pinky finger. And so I'm going to do that and put the drops here on this napkin next to me. And then when we're done, the inclination would be to lick it, but we're not supposed to, because that would show that we're enjoying what we're doing, and we're not supposed to enjoy this, even though it was the Egyptians. So here we go. Dam, blood. Sfardea, frogs. Kinim, lice. Arov, wild beasts. Dever, blight. Shechin, boils. Barad, hail. Arbeh, locusts. Choshech, darkness. Makat bechorot, the slaying of the firstborn. Mi chamocha by Lim Adonai. That should sound familiar to you. We do this at every one of our Shabbat services. Mi kamocha nedar bakodesh, nora tehilot osei fela. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Who is like unto you, O God, among the mighty? Who is like unto you, awesome in praises, working in wonders? Adonai shall reign forever and ever. So this is the song of the Exodus that I've told you about numerous times, and it's used here in the Haggadah, because this is about the Exodus. So, next is Dayenu. I'm going to do the English, and so with each line, respondents say Dayenu. So I'm going to encourage you to say Dayenu along with me. Had God brought us out of Egypt and not divided the sea for us? Dayenu. Had God divided the sea and not permitted us to cross on dry land? Dayenu. Had God permitted us to cross the sea on dry land and not sustained us for 40 years in the desert? Dayenu. Had God sustained us for 40 years in the desert and not fed us with manna? Dayenu. Had God fed us with manna and not given us the Sabbath? Dayenu. Had God given us the Sabbath and not brought us to Mount Sinai? Dayenu. Had God brought us to Mount Sinai and not given us the Torah? Dayenu. Had God given us the Torah and not led us into the land of Israel? Dayenu. Had God led us into the land of Israel and not built for us the temple? Dayenu. Had God built for us the temple and not sent us prophets of truth? Dayenu. Had God sent us prophets of truth and not made us a holy people? Dayenu. How plentiful are the reasons for our gratitude to God for the many favors bestowed upon us. God brought us out of Egypt, divided the Red Sea for us, permitted us to cross on dry land, sustained us for 40 years in the desert, fed us with manna, ordained the Sabbath, brought us to Mount Sinai, gave us the Torah, led us into the land of Israel, built for us the temple, sent us prophets of truth, and made us a holy people to perfect the world under the sovereignty of the Almighty, in truth and in righteousness. Okay, so we're going to do our first song. In case you didn't guess, it's Dayenu. All right. Ooh, I have a pianist. Ilu hotzi hotzi anu mi Mitzrayim hotzi anu mi Mitzrayim dayenu 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 Ilu natan lanu eta Shabbat natan lanu eta Shabbat dayenu. Here we go. Dayenu 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 dayenu. Last verse. Ilu natan lanu eta Torah dayenu 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 dayenu. Yeah, that was good. Nice and enthusiastic. Okay, now we go to the symbols. According to the Mishnah, Rabbi Gamliel said, whoever does not consider well the meaning of the three, Pesach, Matzah, and Maror, has not fulfilled the purpose of the Seder. What is the meaning of this Pesach, which is the shank bone? In family groups, our people ate the Paschal lamb when the temple was still standing. For them, it was a reminder that God had passed over the houses of our ancestors in Egypt during the redemption. What is the meaning of this matzah? Well, it's all over the place here. Of old, matzah was meant to recall that the dough prepared by our people had no time to rise before the final act of redemption. They baked unleavened cakes of the dough, since they had been driven out of Egypt and could not delay, nor had they prepared provisions for themselves. And, pointing to the horseradish, what is the meaning of this maror? It was eaten, they said, because the Egyptians embittered the lives of our people, as it is written, with hard labor at mortar and brick and in all sorts of work in the field, with all the tasks ruthlessly imposed upon them. Now, we come to what I think is the most important line in the Seder. I always say that because I really believe it. In every generation, each of us should feel as though we ourselves have gone forth from Egypt. As it is written, and you shall explain to your child on that day, it is because of what the Eternal did for me when I myself went forth from Egypt. Still we remember, it was we who were slaves, we who were strangers. And so we recall these words as well. You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the feelings of the stranger, having yourselves been strangers in the land of Egypt. When a stranger resides with you, you shall not wrong them, you shall love them as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not subvert the rights of the stranger or the orphan. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore, let us rejoice at the wonder of our deliverance, from bondage to freedom, from agony to joy, from mourning to festivity, from darkness to light, from servitude to redemption. Before God, let us ever sing a new song. Okay, second cup of wine. This is called the cup of redemption. As it is written, I will deliver you from their bondage. Remembering with gratitude the redemption of our ancestors from Egypt, rejoicing in the fruits of our struggle for freedom, we look now with hope to the celebration of a future redemption, the building of the city of peace in which all will rejoice. In the service of God, singing together a new song. We praise you, O God, Redeemer of Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. We praise you, O God, sovereign of all existence, who creates the fruit of the vine. So, that's the end of the first part of the Seder, and I'm gently reminding you that there is more to come, including 2 more sips of wine, and the blessing after the meals, and of course, opening the door for Elijah, and then some singing after that. So, you may be having your meal now, or you may not, but I will be back to do the rest of it, and as you may know, the rest of it is about 15 minutes or something like that. So I'll see you on the second part.